Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today, we are excited to present to you about our research comparative study on productivity of CFS RAUM student during study week versus normal week. As we know, time management is very crucial, especially towards pre-university students who face demanding schedules and exams. Poor time management can increase stress level and negatively impact students' academic performance. Understanding how students allocate their time under varying pressures is essential for supporting their success and well-being. On our research, we have three objectives. The first one, to identify differences in the time students spend studying during study week compared to normal week. Second one, to perceive productivity levels across both periods, exam week and normal week. The third one, to understand how students adjust their study routines in response to changing academic demands. We use quota sampling to ensure proportional representation by gender. Although we collected data from 80 students, we selected only 60 students, which are 30 males and 30 female students. Referring to these tables, we collected raw data on the hours students spent studying during study week and normal week. This data we got from our Google Form survey of 60 CFS RAUM students. This data form the basis of our analysis, which the next representer will explain in detail.
Now, let's talk about frequency distribution table. In a normal week, we can see that 23 students tend to study between 12.5 to 19.5 hours per week. Meanwhile, only one student tend to study between 20.5 to 28.5 hours per week. In a study week, there are 19 students that tend to study between 25.5 to 29.5 hours, and only 2 students tend to study between 9.5 to 13.5 hours per week. Based on the calculation, during normal week, CFS students spend an average of 13.5 hours study, while during a study week, this increased significantly to 23.43 hours per week. This shows that students spend about 10 more hours on average for studying during a study week. The median study time also increased from 13.37 hours in a normal week to 22.85 hours in the study week, indicating that the tropical student put more effort when exam or major deadline approach. The mode is present most frequently recorded during duration, jump from 13.94 hours in a normal week to 25.97 hours in a week. This further confirms that students commonly study much more during study week. In terms of consistency, the standard deviation in a normal week is 5.24, while in a study week, it's slightly lower at 4.7. This suggests that although students generally study more during a study week, their study pattern also become more consistent and focused. Similarly, the values decrease from 27.46 to 22.11, reinforcing the idea of the tighter, more uniform distribution of study hours during study week. From the two students, we can see that the total of study hours for CFS students during a normal week and study week. In a normal week, most students, about 23 students, studies between 12.5 to 19.5 hours, followed by 14 students at 8.5 to 12.5 hours, and for 4.5 to 8.5 hours by 11 students. Very few students studies more than 20.5 hours by one student. In the study week, the time noticeably shift, and 17.5 to 21.5 hours by 14 students. Only a small number study less than 13.5 hours, about 2 students. Overall, the total of students increased their study hours in the study week, with the shifting from the 12.5 to 19.5 hour range in a normal week to the 25.5 to 26.5 hour range in the study week, increased significantly to 23.43 hours per week. This shows that students spend more time, about 10. Now, let's talk about frequency distribution table. In a normal week, we can see that 23 students tend to study between 12.5 to 19.5 hours per week. Meanwhile, only one student tend to study between 20.5 to 28.5 hours per week. In a study week, there are 19 students that tend to study between 25.5 to 29.5 hours, and only 2 students tend to study between 9.5 to 13.5 hours per week. Based on the calculation, during normal week, CFS students spend an average of 13.5 hours study, while during a study week, this increased significantly to 23.43 hours per week. This shows that,
as you can see, this pie chart indicates the gender distribution of our sample of 60 students. As shown, the sample comprised an exact 50% representation of 30 male students and 50% representation of 30 female students. This equal representation ensures that no gender is overrepresented. Having an equal split allows us to compare without introducing gender-based bias. As you can see, this pie chart shows that out of 60 respondents, 69.3% are enrolled in science-based program, while 30.7% are in art-based programs. This indicates that most of the participants lean toward science-related fields, with a difference of 38.6% between the two groups. This gap suggests a stronger interest of higher enrollment in science-based education. However, the significant proportion of art-based students still reflects a fairly balanced distribution, showing that both streams have substantial representation. This balance should influence how individuals manage their time. After that, as you can see, this pie chart illustrates the various strategies used by CFS IUM students to enhance their productivity during their studies. The most popular method, chosen by 29.3% of students, was using specific learning techniques such as active recall, spaced repetition, and other structures approach. Furthermore, 28% of students prioritize getting enough rest and sleep, recognizing the crucial role of physical well-being in academic performance. Group study with friends was the third most common strategy at 26.7%, suggesting a strong reliance on peer collaboration and discussion. Meanwhile, creating a study table was selected by 30.3% of students, showing some preference for organized schedule. Only a small portion, 2.7%, reported going out or taking breaks outside CFS as a way to recharge. Overall, the data indicates the most students favor cognitive strategies and personal well-being to maintain productivity, with lesser emphasis on recreational breaks.
The qualitative for number 4 is factors influence students' productivity. So you can see this pie chart shows how CFS students perceive their own spending time based on this factor. So the largest group that we can see from this pie chart is 57.3% responded that their upcoming deadline or exam. So for the 17.3% identify as study environment. Meanwhile, the 20% consider themselves as peer influencer. Then only 5.4% saw themselves mainly as availability of learning resources. For the last one is challenges faced in staying productive. So based on this pie chart, the main challenge faced by CFS students in staying productivity is procrastination, that reported by 30.7% of the student. This followed by lack of motivation, that is 21.3%, and overlapping assignments, that is 70.3%. However, indicating the time management and maintaining focus are major issues. Distraction from social media affects 13.3% of students, while 13.7% struggles due to peer influence. So the lowest that reported only 3.7% a lack of sleep as a challenge. Overall, this pie chart shows that internal factors such as procrastination and motivation are the most significant barriers to productivity among CFS students. So to conclude, this study demonstrates how academic intensity significantly affects CFS student pre-university. Students' time management and productivity, with an average study time increase from 13.5 to 23.43 hours. The result unequivocally demonstrates that students significantly increase their study hours during study week as compared to a typical week, the normal week. This implies that students can modify their timetables to accommodate the needs of their studies. Additionally, the research shows that study habits become more constant throughout study week, but they will vary greatly during a typical week. Other than that, the examination of tactics and difficulties highlights that while procrastination and lack of desire continue to be significant barriers, the majority of students rely on efficient learning method and relaxation to increase productivity. The distribution of academic streams and gender was balanced, allowing for insightful comparison. So this study comes to the conclusion that although CFS students respond to academic pressure by increasing their study time, productivity may still be increased by improved time management, motivational techniques, and support networks. All in all, this finding can assist CFS IUM students in establishing focused programs such as seminar on time management or stress coping technique, and improving learning settings to enhance students' academic success and well-being. As a Muslim, we believe that time is a trust, amanah from Allah SWT, and must be used wisely. Allah SWT swears by time in Surah Al-Asr, highlighting its immense value. So this is the verse. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal-asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. So the translation is, by time, indeed mankind is in loss, except for those who believe and do righteous deeds and advise each other to truth and patience. Surah Al-Asr, ayat 1 until 3. So this study on time managed among CFS IM students serve as a reminder that our time in this world is limited and should be spent in ways that bring us closer to Allah SWT. The increase in study hours during study week demonstrates the ability of students to be disciplined and focused when there is pressure. However, from Tawhidic perspective, we should not wait for pressure to act diligently. True believers are consistent in their efforts because they are conscious of their responsibility to fulfill their duties, both worldly and spiritually.